So this morning, no it's not, it's this afternoon. Too busy talking about sun. So this afternoon, this evening, I'm going to be talking about our liver. Our liver is a very interesting organ because our liver is the only organ that God created to be a recoverable organ. It's the only organ that can actually regrow. And this organ, the liver, is sometimes called the master chemist, and you will understand why it's given that name as we look at its functions this evening. But it's also called the project manager. And the reason it's called the project manager because everything that comes into the body first goes to the project manager. And everything that comes out of the body comes out under the jurisdiction of the liver. So whenever environmental poisons come into our body, and I think you'll agree with me, we're exposed to more environmental poisons than any generation that ever lived on the planet. Maybe last night I introduced you to a few that surprise you. Most people go home with a magnifying glass and start looking at the labels on their clothes. Get a little bit of a shock. It's the hidden ones that are often the most dangerous, the ones that we don't see in our food. I have to tell you, I would rather see a caterpillar in my lettuce. Because what does that mean? There's no poisons on it. What's the saying? Don't panic, it's organic. I just really don't like it when I'm sitting with the guests. I look over and with horror I see a slug on the corner of their plate. I remember sitting there thinking, what can I do? And I remember I just got up and put my hand there and... because she wouldn't finish her dinner if I told her. But as I showed you yesterday, anything that goes into our gastrointestinal tract is not part of us until it gets broken down to tiny particles then absorbed into the gut. And it was the same with one day. I'm lecturing to about 12 guests and they're in lounge chairs, and I looked over and I saw a spider on the back of one of the chairs. Now you can't say anything or everyone starts screaming, well the ladies do. So I'm just chatting away, and I just moved over, put my hand on it, squished it, and we just kept talking. I'm a bushie. I'm from the bush, so, we do things like that. So today we're going to have a look at the liver, and I have to tell you that some of those things that we can't see are far more dangerous than a spider or a slug or a caterpillar. Far more dangerous. And so when people used to say to me, Barbara, your little baby, in the stroller is sucking on a weed, I say, yeah, I gave it to them. It's usually a clover flower or a dandelion flower, nice colour. I'd say it's better than a candy. You see, we've almost lost conception about what is dangerous and what is not dangerous. It's like when a lady said to me she's got glaucoma. I said, you can put castor oil in your eye. She said, is that safe? Is that the same lady that lets a doctor put a needle in her eye? Is that safe? What happens if it's put in every month? What do you think it's doing to the eye? Can you imagine the damage that's happening? We've forgotten what's safe. And that's why I stress the Psalm 146 verse 3. Do you know it off by heart yet? Put not your trust in princes. That's why when my husband went to have his eye tested and the doctor said, you've got a bit of pressure, I'll refer you to a specialist. Michael said, no. The doctor followed him and said, excuse me, sir, but you've got pressure in your eyes. Michael said, no. And when he got to the door, the doctor said, do you want to go blind? Michael turned around and said, no. Remember what you say. Thank you so much for your opinion. I'll seriously consider this. Because God made us each to be the master of our own destiny. We are the ones that choose. And unfortunately, we are exposed to so many environmental poisons today. But as you will see with what you're going to learn this evening, that God gave us an organ, the liver, that is able to detoxify us from environmental poisons. So when those environmental poisons come in, it always goes first to the liver. It can come in through our skin, we can breathe it in, ingest it. However it comes in, it gets into the blood. And then when it gets into the blood, it goes to the liver. And then the liver looks at it and determines what to do. Sometimes it can break it down to a fairly safe substance and release it out. But sometimes it looks at it and says, nasty one, wrap it up in fat and store it. And that's why we had a guest who was a Vietnam veteran. And he was carrying a bit of extra weight, and his doctor said, don't lose weight. Why did the doctor say that? Because what's in his fat stores, having been in the Vietnam War, which really was the first war where chemicals were used in such large amounts. I know chemical warfare was beginning a little in the First and the Second World War, but the Vietnam War is where they exceeded it. And since there's been a few more regulations or restraints on it, but unfortunately, and it just saddens me when I see what many countries do to their soldiers. You know, those men who have gone to war to fight for our freedoms. And so a lot of them have environmental poisons in their bodies. And he said to me, I have heard that you have a detoxification program that nutritionally supports the liver and the body to safely release these poisons out. I said, you are right. But what I want to look at first, before we look at that process, I want to have a look at what the liver does with the food we're eating. Because remember, everything that comes into the body goes first to the liver. And never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. It's almost as if we've taken every carbohydrate from every culture and put them all together. Because traditionally, every culture had some form of carbohydrate. So let's do the carbohydrate list. So the carbohydrates, what would most Americans have for breakfast? Cereal. Another one is bread. Yep. One lady said to me, eggs and bacon. I said, not much anymore. It's like one lady said to me, Barbara, you don't understand. I don't cook. I said, do you eat? Okay, let's get back to the subject. And then I'm just going to say cakes, etc., because we could just about fill the board on this classification, which is pretzels and cookies and biscuits. Do you know in Australia we call cookies biscuits? So when Australians come here and we see a sign that says biscuits and gravy, we think that's true. These people eat strange. But I do understand your biscuits are like scones, aren't they? Or like a roll or something like that. And so that includes muffins and pasties and pies, etc. That's why donuts, we've got a big one there. So we'll just leave it at that. Also, pasta, as a fifth generation Australian Scottish descent, I didn't know what pasta was till I was about 18. And those from my era would probably agree. Pizza, but they have become very popular carbohydrates. Rice and potatoes. Yes, we had potatoes every meal. And last and certainly least in nutritive value is the pure crystallized acid extracted from the sugarcane plant. Would you agree with me that the industrialised nations today, it's almost as if they've taken the carbohydrates from every culture and put them all together? We've become high carbohydrate consumers, and I don't think anyone planned to eat that way. It's just there, it's just fast, and we are such a fast society today that many people don't think about the meal till they get hungry. It's the worst time to think about your meal. Because if you're hungry, what are you going to do? Reach for the quick. Now, when I was in the rainforest, raising my children, making just about everything I ate, this was not fast food. This was slow food. So what's fast food down on the farm? Fruits and vegetables. Pick apple off the tree, eat immediately. So I believe in this fast society where so many people are living in the city, people have lost the conception of actually the proportions and the balance we should be eating. Carbohydrates are not bad. What a relief. My husband would never forgive me if the potatoes stopped. I'd be thrown out of Asia if I said the rice was no good. No, carbohydrates aren't bad. It's only when they're overdone and refined, and isn't that what we're seeing today? Later on, in the week, we're going to look at diabetes, and you will see that this is a big contributing factor, but I'll be exploring that in more detail. But right now, I want to have a look at what the body does with these carbohydrates. So the carbohydrates, as we saw last night, they are broken down in the gut to tiny substances, absorbed out of the blood, out of the gut and into the blood. I mix up my words. Do you hear that one? Blood? Blood is gut and blood together. I usually just keep going so you don't notice, but I thought that was a good one. All of these foods in the gastrointestinal tract predominantly break down to glucose. And then that glucose is taken by the blood, by the M1 main highway portal vein straight to the project manager, the liver. And then the liver determines where it goes. And the first place it goes is to the cell. The glucose comes into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway. And that 20-step pathway delivers to us 2 units of energy. That's why we eat. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we have still got a lot of glucose left over after glucose is fed through the energy pathways. After the 20-step pathway, a chemical form of glucose is produced called a pyruvate, and pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, is fed into the 8-step pathway. 8-step pathway is called the powerhouse of the cell, because the 8-step pathway delivers 36 units of energy. Why does a 20-step pathway only give 2 and an 8-step pathway gives 6? It's oxygen. What a difference oxygen makes. Are you practicing nose breathing? You'll get more oxygen. And more oxygen means more energy. So only so much glucose can be fed through those energy pathways. So now the liver causes some of the excess to be stored as glycogen. Glycogen is a name given to quick-release glucose stores. And it was our glycogen stores that we used on our morning walk before breakfast. But on a high carbohydrate diet, we've still got glucose left over. And so now the liver stores it in the most effective way that it can store all the excess. All the excess is stored as fat. Now what I've given you here is just the basic science. And I know in Australia, and I think also in the US, people are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see by what I've just shown you, fat doesn't make you fat. What makes you fat? It's this high carbohydrate diet. If you have a look at photographs around the First and the Second World War of crowd scenes, most people are slim. Most people are slim. We're going to pursue that in more detail in another lecture. But what I want to target today is what the liver does. And so when our guests come to Misty Mountain, we serve them a meal Sunday lunch, and in the evening we serve a thin soup. And then Monday, Tuesday, we serve juices, no solid food. So we serve them a magnificent meal on Sunday, so they've got something to dream about for 2 days. And we say to them, we're going to feed you very well over the next 2 days, but it'll all be liquid. And there is a reason for that. We want to bypass digestion. When you stop digestion, did you know it takes 1,200 calories to digest a meal? And when you're not digesting a meal, all that excess energy is looking around for something to do. And as it looks around for something to do, it'll go to the areas in your body of the greatest need. It actually is like what happens when we're at home on holidays. I don't know about you, but I go to the areas of greatest need. Like every day you sweep the floor, wash the dishes, wash the clothes, make the bed. But there's these other areas. I usually go to my bookcase, pull it apart and start putting everything back into order. Those extra duties that aren't a priority, but when you've got a bit of extra time, that's where the body goes. So I'm going to explain what happens with our guests to show you how the liver deals with the fat-soluble toxins that are stored up in our fat cells. Remember the ones that the liver deems too nasty to try and eliminate? We've got to store them. The fat-soluble toxins can't be released in a fat-soluble state. They have to be broken down to a water-soluble state. And so when people come to our retreat, on Monday morning, there's no solid food served. We serve a juice. And because there's no solid food served, then the liver sees that the body needs a bit more energy. It starts breaking down the fat stores. Starts breaking down the fat stores to give that excess glucose that the person needs. That's why a fast is often called a detox or a cleanse. So let me show you what we do at Misty Mountain. 8 a.m, 10, 12, 2 and 4, we serve juices. And it's usually an 8-ounce juice. So this is Monday and this is Tuesday. And the juice is usually carrot, and that's 80%. 80% carrot. Celery is usually 10%, and apple 10%. This is called the vegetarian's milk because you could just about subsist on this. In fact, I've met 2 mothers who gave that to their babies. The babies could not have any milk at all. Not the mother's milk, not any milk. When the naturopaths put the baby on this as milk, the babies did well. So we serve 5 juices in a day, and we serve 8 ounce. Not every juice is exactly the same. Sometimes we do a bit less carrot and put some cucumber in. Sometimes a bit less carrot and put some beets in. So there's little variation. Sometimes a little less carrot and put some greens in. So there's a variation on that theme. So 8 o'clock, juice comes, no solid food, and that's when the body starts to go into a detox. And it releases some fat stores to give the glucose that the person needs, especially if they're sitting through the lectures and they need a bit of extra fuel in the brain, but something else is a little bit more sinister is also released, and that's the fat-soluble toxin. The fat-soluble toxin once again comes into the blood. Once again it goes to the liver. The liver says, oh, not him again. And the liver's about to say, wrap him up in fat and store him, and the liver goes, hang on, they're at the health retreat. They're receiving the nutrients necessary to break that fat-soluble toxin down to a water-soluble state. The information I'm about to give you on the three phases of the liver detox has only been known since the 1980s, late 80s. So let's have a look. Phase 1. Phase 1 of this detoxification of the liver takes this fat-soluble toxin, because remember, it's just realised it's at the health retreat and it's got the nutrients necessary to break it down. So in phase 1, the liver takes this fat-soluble toxin and it breaks it down to a metabolite. What's a metabolite? A metabolite simply means the first stage of metabolism or first stage of breakdown. But this metabolite is nasty. This metabolite is sometimes 100 times more toxic than it originally was. And you might say, well, what's the body doing? Well, it's like this. If you're going to clean out the kitchen cupboards, what's the kitchen like halfway through it? 100 times messier. You're going to clean out the garden shed. What's it like halfway through? 100 times messier. So it's a process. It's a process. And the liver has certain needs in stage 1. To be able to cope with this in phase 1, because of this nasty metabolite, which also creates a lot of free radicals, and remember, free radicals damage the tissues. The needs of the body in phase 1 is antioxidants. If you know a little bit of your chemistry, free radicals are an electron short. And whenever that atom is an electron short, it grabs an electron from the next atom, and then it grabs one from the next atom. So there's this cascading effect of damage. And antioxidants come with lots of extra electrons. And the most potent antioxidant is beta-carotene. And beta-carotene is found in your orange and your green-coloured vegetables. So when the liver saw that carrot juice, it knew that it could start this breakdown. Because every juice we serve is either orange or red or green, high in antioxidants. The most famous antioxidant is vitamin C, and vitamin C is not ascorbic acid. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid with bioflavonoids. That's how it's found in nature, with all the bioflavonoids. And the other most famous antioxidant is vitamin E. And vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin. And as I go through the supplements we give, you will see how we provide that. What's also necessary, and these are not antioxidants, but they are necessary in phase 1, is minerals, and all the juices are high in minerals, and also vitamin B. So we usually give a liquid B. Within 36 hours of starting the detoxification program, within 36 hours of no food. Remember, our guests come in Sunday, they have Sunday lunch, so this is Monday. So Tuesday morning, phase 2 kicks in. So in phase 2 of the liver detox, the liver takes this toxic metabolite and joins it together with amino acids. The union of this toxic metabolite with amino acids produces the water-soluble state. Whew. That's what we've all been waiting for, and that's how it can easily be released out of the body via our sweat glands, urine, colon. So let me look in a little bit more detail of what we give our guests. So every juice, Monday and Tuesday, they get an 8-ounce juice. But they also get a 1-ounce green barley. at 8, at 12, at 4 on Monday. It's green barley powder, and we mix it up with a little water and lemon. Put a bit of vitamin C and B in it. 10 o'clock, we give a protein drink. Remember, 1 ounce protein drink. So they have 8-ounce glass of juice and a little 1 ounce beside it. At 8 o'clock, green barley, but at 10 o'clock, protein. So what do we use for that? I think at our retreat they use a pea protein, and they put it with a little coconut and almond milk. So there is your vitamin E. But on Tuesday, because the liver's now gone into a different stage, our guests get their 8-ounce juice plus the protein drink. Because by 8 o'clock Tuesday morning, they've gone into phase 2. 10 o'clock, the supplement is green barley. 12 o'clock, protein drink. 2 o'clock, green barley. 4 o'clock, protein drink. At 6 p.m, both days, we give the broth, which is a lot of vegetables cooked in a lot of water, strained so it's a high mineral drink at the end of the day. You can see why we supply the protein drink for the amino acids. We are dealing with more fat-soluble toxins than any generation that ever lived on the planet. And that is why we actually need more amino acids, more protein. And you can see on this high carbohydrate diet, a lot of people are lacking protein because they're eating too many carbohydrates. Let's go back to the 3-phase, because remember it's 3-phase. Phase 3 happens in conjunction with phase 2. In phase 3, the liver takes this water-soluble toxin and it releases it out via our sweat glands. It releases it out via our urine. It releases it out via our colon. It's almost as if God kept a veil over the knowledge of this 3-phase of the liver detox until the last 20, 30 years. Because we are dealing with so many environmental poisons. 100 years ago, you could do a water fast, but not today. Because remember what the liver said when that fat-soluble toxin was released. He was about to stir it and said, oh, they're at the retreat. They're getting the nutrients necessary to break this fat-soluble toxin down to a water-soluble state that now can be sweated out, urinated out by the colon. I gave this lecture at a conference one year, and a man came up to me and said, that's very interesting, but he said, it's not for your lay people, this is for your academics. I said, lay people have livers too, you know. It's actually important information for us living today to deal with the environmental poisons that we're all dealing with. And unfortunately today, even if you were to live on a mountaintop way out in the bush, you're still getting them, because guess what? Planes go overhead. And we live up a valley. We're the second last property on the valley. Then we found out the farmer up the valley's killing all his Parramatta grass with Roundup. He goes into our water. It's almost impossible to be totally free from it. But I thank God that He's given us a liver that can effectively detoxify us. This also explains why. And believe it or not, Dr. Atkins, I don't know whether at his death that he knew this, but Dr. Atkins, he's the first person that really blew the whistle on the danger of the high carbohydrate. And I find his story interesting. And I was not interested in Dr. Atkins because all I heard was, oh, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, yeah. And I don't eat meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, so why would I be interested in it? But we had a guest. And he said to me, I know you're not going to like this, Barbara, but I go so well on the Atkins diet. Do you know, the best health professional does this, is that right? It listens. And when he said that to me, I immediately wanted to know why. Why does he go so well on it? He said, I go up the Atkins diet, I put on weight, I go down. I wanted to know why. My father was an inventor, my brother's an inventor. It's my brother, me, then 3 sisters. My sisters are all scientists. I grew up in a home where you had to know why. Everything that came into the home, Dad and Dave pulled apart. They wanted to know how it works, why it works. And when it was time for me to get my licence, my father said I had to learn how an engine works. Oh, I was not happy. None of my girlfriends had to learn how an engine works. I remember sitting with Dad every night for a week and learning about spark plugs going off and pistons going up and down, something like that. But doesn't that make a lot of sense? I didn't have to be a mechanic, I just had to know a little bit about it. How much more important to know about the body we live in and how it works. Yes, this is a bit complicated, but hey, it explains why we need to eat what we need to eat today. So let me give you Atkins' story, because when this man said this to me, I thought, I want to know why. And then something else happened. It was about a month later. I got a call. The staff said, Barbara, Anton needs to speak to you. And it was Tuesday, middle of the day. And I said, what is it, Anton? Anton's a guest. He's 44, going through the detox. He said, I just feel terrible. He said, my body's, it's just like it's crying out for protein. And I said, say no more. I blended up some protein powder and some coconut milk, gave it to him. He drank it. I saw him half an hour later. He said, thanks. And I did not know why he needed that. I wanted to know why. Why did the man on the Atkins diet go so well? Why did this guest need protein powder? Because I did not know about the 3 phases of the liver detox. It's about 20 years ago now. And when I did my nutrition course, we studied the 3 phases of the liver detox, every module, 10 modules. But before I studied that, I was staying at a friend's house, and it always amazes me how God works, how he leads you, how he guides you. So I had these 2 experiences, and I'm wondering why. And I stayed at a friend's house, and when I woke up in the morning, I was staying in their spare room on the lounge that folds down, and there's the bookcase. And there, right in the middle, Dr. Atkins' new revolutionary diet. I picked it up. I could not put that book down. Fascinating. Atkins was a GP, getting into his 50s, putting on a bit of excess weight. He knew his science. There it is. So he decided to do an experiment on himself and stop all carbohydrates. So he stopped all carbohydrates. What did he do? Yes, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. But most people don't realise he knew he had to have some fibre to keep his gastrointestinal tract working. And most people don't realise on the Atkins diet you had to eat 3 cups of vegetables a day. So what did he eat? He ate lots of fibre. He also ate lots of protein, meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs, and meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs certainly well supplies fat. So that's what he ate. The weight just fell off him. He was never hungry because there are 3 foods that keep the food in the stomach longer. Remember we looked at that yesterday. Fibre, because it slowly releases the glucose. Protein, because that's what's broken down in the stomach. And fat coats the food, so it takes a little bit longer. But that's good news, because what it means, he was never hungry. He had lots of energy. You see, if you are not supplying this high glucose release food, the liver is able to convert stored fat into glucose. It's called gluconeogenesis. And the liver is able to convert protein and fat to glucose if it needs to. Because he found the perfect diet. Never hungry, weight just falling off him, lots of energy. Put some of his patients on it. Were they happy? Oh yes. They could eat everything they can't usually eat on a weight loss diet. What's the weight loss diet been for the last 40 years that the princes have put people on? No fat. Is that right? Do you know, fat is what gives the feeling of satiation or satisfaction. No, I don't suggest we drink a cup of olive oil a day, but there's a bit of common sense there, isn't there? It's very concentrated food, you don't need much. I think I have about a teaspoon on my toast in the morning before I put my avocado on. And you probably notice that doesn't make me fat, because fat doesn't make you fat, unless you're drinking a cup of olive oil a day. But I don't know anyone that does that, by the way. So Atkins started to put all his patients on it, and after a year he was surprised. Yes, weight loss, but people with diabetes were coming off their medication. People with cancer were going into remission. We'll have a look at that, because I think we're looking at cancer tomorrow. People with high cholesterol level, it was coming back to normal. He's scratching his head. Because what did the princes tell us? And what he found is that these are the 3 essential food groups. Essential means body cannot make it, you've got to put it in. And what Atkins found is that the carbohydrate is actually the non-essential food group. Whew. So what's happening is people on the carbohydrate diet are overdoing the non-essential and missing out on the 3 essentials, because the princes have put this fat phobia into people's minds. In my next lecture, we're going to explore fats in more detail. In fact, one writer claims that it's going to take a whole generation to get fat phobia out of the brain. And I'll show you that in more detail in the next lecture after the break. But aren't I a vegetarian? And isn't Atkins eating meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs? Yes, but I love his science because it's correct. So I wanted to know how you could do this on a plant-based diet. And so then I went to Genesis 1:29, where God's telling Adam and Eve what to eat. And God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed." What's a herb-bearing seed? A herb-bearing seed, we'll look at the food, we'll look at the protein content, and we'll look at the carbohydrate content. A herb-bearing seed is a grain: wheat, rye, barley, oats, amaranth, buckwheat, quinoa, so many grains. Grains are high in protein, but they are high in carbohydrate. Let's look at our carbohydrate list and you will see just about everything is from grain. Grain, 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 grain. There's lots of grains there. Grain, grain, grain. A herb-bearing seed is also a bean or a legume. That's lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, black-eyed, you call them black-eyed peas, cannellini beans, kidney beans, so many. We'll just call it the bean. They're high in protein, but they are medium to low in carbohydrate. And the fact is that the bean is about a third the carbohydrate that you will find in the grain. And God said, behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed. That's also a seed. So with seed, we've got pumpkin seed, sesame seed, sunflower seed, linseed or flaxseed, chia seed. These seeds are high in protein, but quite low in carbohydrate. So God said, behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed and every tree. And the which of the trees a fruit-bearing seed? What's a fruit-bearing seed? That's your nut. And we have so many nuts. Macadamia. I had to start with macadamia, being Australian. Cashew, pecan, you call it pecan. And walnut, almond, Brazil, hazelnuts, high. They're high in protein, low in carbohydrate. And so to maintain a high fibre, generous protein, great fats, and to keep the carbohydrates down because they're non-essential, my suggestion is decrease the grain part of the meal and increase the legume, seed, nut part of the meal. That is an easy way to make sure you're not overdoing the carbohydrate and ensuring that you are getting your 3 essential food groups. So instead of having 3 cups of rice and a cup of lentil dal, you have 1 cup of rice and 2 cups of lentil dal and a big salad. And instead of having a whole plate of pasta, you might have 1/3 of a plate of pasta with a nice rich tomato sauce with lentils in it and a salad. So it's just a matter of changing the ratio. That's an easy way to do it. And as you will see when we look at cancer, when we look at diabetes and weight loss, this is an excellent way to keep the balance of the foods. So you're getting your essentials and yet getting the results with these different lifestyle diseases that unfortunately are so prevalent today. Looking at the needs of phase 1 of the liver detox and looking at phase 2, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to see that phase 2 of the liver detox needs protein, and we supply that in the protein drinks. Phase 3 of the liver detox basically needs fat. Why does it need fat? It needs fat to keep those cells in the liver supple, to actually give a nice stimulation to your liver, the gallbladder, which produces bile. Do you know, a fat-free diet is terrible for the liver. It's got nothing to do. The bile sits there and little stones can start to be made. You've heard of those? It's not the only cause, but it is a contributing factor. No wonder I stress the importance of not putting your trust in princes. What we need to do is look at history. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, is there? And most people have been caught up in this high carbohydrate, not because they chose it, but because it's just easy. It's just there. And we're busy. So it's a matter of actually, at breakfast, think about lunch. Last night, what we got home, we thought, do we need to put some beans on to soak? And we did. And we rinsed them this morning, and we brought them to the boil, and then we rinsed them again because of all the white froth on top. What's that? Wind? Gas. And then when they're 3/4 cooked, we cook a delicious onion, garlic, tomato sauce, then finish cooking those beans in that. That's an easy way to do it. Easier on the gut. And remember, if the gut's still not happy with that, you can start with just a very small amount and slowly build your gut up to it. So as you can see, the 3-phase of the liver detox is a very effective way to release waste out of the body, especially environmental poisons. So when that Vietnam veteran attended our program, remember his doctor had said, don't lose weight. When he did the 2-day fast, we gave him a protein drink every single juice, and at 7 o'clock at night, because the fat-soluble toxins that were coming out of his fat cells were pretty nasty. And he cruised through the detox with no adverse effects, and he also lost weight. He was very happy. He was very happy. So there is a way to detoxify from environmental poisons safely. Can you see that we nutritionally support the liver? And we nutritionally support every cell in the body to be able to effectively detox from these environmental poisons. Because we get some quite sick people who've been cleaners all their life, exposed to a lot of chemicals. Farmers, a lot of farmers. Some of the chemicals that farmers are not allowed to use now, they were freely using 20 years ago. Also, a lot of builders and tilers, we find, have been exposed to a lot of environmental poisons. And young men think they're invincible, so they don't think that they need to take any precaution. But you know, the day comes. The day comes when it is revealed. And then suddenly the person gets sick and they say, why am I sick? When I look at their history, I think, wow, I'm surprised this didn't happen earlier. Because remember what the liver does. If it's nasty, it wraps it up in fat and stores it. But if we are supplying the necessary nutrients, which you will easily do on a high fibre, there's lots of vegetables, greens, try and have greens and orange vegetables every day. We're having adequate protein. The cleanest burning fuel is found in your beans and in your nuts and your seeds. Good fats, a bit of olive oil, coconut oil, avocados, nuts and seeds. You are amply supplying the essential nutrients that the body does need to be able to effectively detoxify you. I was asked the question on meat last night. The question's also on eggs. Do you know if you have chooks, well, you know in Australia we call chickens chooks. Yeah, chooks. So we call chickens the babies, but the chooks are the adults. So if you have chooks and you're feeding them well, do you know it's one of the best animal products if you're going to eat animal products. And if you do want to eat meat, then it's absolutely important that it be organic, because unfortunately today, the way the animals are fed, the way they grow, it's not like they were down on the farm, Lulabelle the cow in the paddock. It's not like that anymore. And if you were to give a newborn baby calf the cow's milk in the supermarket, that calf would die. So it's a long way different to what it traditionally was. I'm a 5th generation Australian Scottish descent, and I've never been able to handle milk. I can't handle milk. It obviously wasn't in my heritage. So I do understand that there may be some organic dairy farmers, and I do understand that if you can handle it, you can handle it, but make sure you're having a lot of vegetables. So this is the 3-phase of the liver detox. It's in my book, Self-Heal by Design. I think it's also in Sustain Me. I've got a chapter on the liver in both books. What's also important, as your liver is detoxifying, that the waste is able to get out. So how do we do that? Well, we have organs of elimination. And those organs of elimination are very effective at eliminating waste. But we must give them the right conditions so that they can effectively eliminate the waste. One organ of elimination, or the largest, is the skin. And the skin has certain needs to be effective organ of elimination. One is it needs to breathe. So make sure that what's touching your skin is natural fibre, especially ladies. I know when Heathrow Airport lost my bags for 5 weeks. 2 years ago, I had to go and buy a few clothes. I didn't want to buy many because I had some clothes. I found it nearly impossible to buy a cotton bra. But if every woman in this room only bought a bra made out of natural fibre, that would quickly change things because we, the consumer, have power. Also, be careful what you're putting on your skin. Start to read your labels. Allow your skin to breathe. Wash it every day, sometimes even twice a day. In the summer, after my morning walk, I'll have a wash then. And then before I go to bed, I'll have a wash because the skin throws off a lot of waste. And notice that it throws off waste via water. So it's important that we be well hydrated in at least 8 glasses of water a day. On the detox program, we encourage our guests to have a glass of water between every juice. Then they will easily make up the water that their body needs. Because in the afternoon, we have a steam sauna. And our steam sauna is down by the creek. And we heat the body up. Fevers are nothing to fear. They're a wonderful process. In fact, we create fevers every single afternoon in our guests in the steam sauna. And in that steam sauna, they perspire big time. So a lot of waste is coming out via their skin. But they need to be well hydrated for that. They do about 10 minutes in the steam sauna, then they dive in the mountain stream, or they have a cold shower, then back into the steam sauna, usually 3 times. The skin also needs us to exercise because when we exercise, we increase the circulation of the blood to the skin. And when we increase the circulation of the blood to the skin, it increases our skin's ability to throw off waste. The lungs are also an organ of elimination. So it's important that we be breathing in lots of fresh air. The nights here are cool, but I always have my window open. It was a bit cool the first night, so I got a feather quilt last night, and I was very warm, but I was breathing in fresh air. Make sure you're breathing in fresh air. And nose breathing. Nose purifies the air, nose humidifies the air, nose warms the air. Mouth does not do that. So make sure you're nose breathing. If you're not sure, there's one way to ensure you are. Tape your mouth up. And you don't have to tape it up like that. You can put a little bit of tape from under your nose to your chin. My suggestion is do it for an hour a day. And then after a week, sleep with it. We just about wipe out snoring. Just about wipe out sleep apnea. You will get more oxygen when you breathe through your nose. Exercise increases our lungs' capacity to take in more air and breathe out more waste. Also, water. There's a minuscule droplet of water in every alveoli. And when you breathe out, that droplet of water, because of the surface tension of water, causes the alveoli to collapse, which means we can take in more air. Kidneys. Our kidneys do a wonderful job at filtering our blood, but they need water. Again, we need at least 8 glasses a day. Start early. Get into the habit of just going to bed with a big glass by your bed. Try and drink at least 2 glasses before breakfast. And last night I showed you how when you drink water half an hour before the meal, thickens that lining of the stomach. Your kidneys also need to be warm. I find when I'm in America in the summer, it is so cold in every building. So cold. I was in Saudi Arabia about 6 weeks ago, so I just took summer clothes. Mistake. Every car, every taxi, every building is so cold. Particularly cold because I think most of the people have robes on. So I had to go and buy some warm clothes. So even in the summer, in air-conditioned rooms, make sure the kidneys are warm. When the kidneys get cold, they chill. The kidneys also need you to exercise, because when you exercise, you increase circulation of the blood to the kidneys, and when you exercise, your kidneys are moving. Have you done your push-ups today? Sorry? If you can't do push-ups, ladies, you can do ladies push-ups on your knees. And even if that's hard, try the push-ups on the wall. Remember, we're building up the core. It's the best thing you can do for your spine, is build up your core muscles. Also, the kidneys, yes, they've got water, salt. The Celtic salt contains 82 minerals. I don't think anyone drinks their urine, but it is salty. Your perspiration is salty. So the more water you drink, the more salt you lose, and so the Celtic salt's important. The colon. The colon takes the largest pieces of waste out. Only microscopic waste is released out via your skin, your lungs and your kidneys, but the colon eliminates the largest pieces of waste, and the colon has a mind of its own, and it needs gentle stimulation. So how do we gently stimulate the colon? We looked at this last night. It needs fibre. We don't give our guests any fibre for 2.5 days. And so we give them a colon tea. I mentioned it last night, and it is in Sustain Me. I think it's actually in both Sustain Me and Self Heal by Design. And those herbs gently stimulate the movement. The colon also needs you to exercise. When you exercise, you increase the circulation of the blood to the colon, and when you exercise, your colon is stimulated to move. Your colon also needs you to drink adequate water. I had a princess come and see me in Saudi Arabia in all her robes. She said, I have a problem with constipation. I said, how much water do you drink? She said, 2 glasses a day. I said, sounds like we can easily fix this one. Water. From the top of society to the bottom, it doesn't matter who you are. We've all got the same bodies. And you know, the Bible is no respecter of persons, yeah? All are totally equal in the eyes of God. We all need to drink water. And yesterday we looked at position, which is mimicking the squatting position, which makes it so much easier to take pressure off the anus and also to open the colon for easy elimination. There's one more tiny little organ of elimination. And we do warn our guests that we're on the fast. When they wake up, the mouth might not taste very nice. The tongue is an organ of elimination. And the tongue, when you're fasting, when you wake up, it can often be coated. And also, if your body is eliminating waste, don't be surprised if it's coated. But there's a simple thing you can do. It's called oil pulling. And oil pulling is putting a spoonful of coconut oil in your mouth and swishing. Swish, swish, swish. For maybe about 10 minutes, and then release it out, not down. We call it the plug hole. You call it the sink hole, yeah? Not down there, because it'll go solid and it'll plug, it'll block up your plumbing. Outside on the grass or into, we call it the garbage bin, you call it the trash can, yeah? Release it into there, because it's going to be full of waste. And the reason why it's called oil pulling, because it pulls waste out of the tongue, it pulls waste out of the glands under your tongue, pulls waste out of the blood vessels under your tongue. And I have found when someone has a congested chest and they oil pull, after they've oil pulled, they often cough up a lump or two. And if a person is congested in the sinuses and they oil pull, it's not uncommon after they've oil pulled to blow their nose a bit. It seems to release even in those further areas of the respiratory. When our guests are on a 2-day fast, we encourage them to oil pull 2 or 3 times a day. Now, if you put the oil in your mouth and you just can't stand it, because we're not used to a mouth full of oil, are we? Even if you just keep it for a few minutes, it's already done something. And then the next time you might keep it in a few more minutes. And then the next time you might keep it in a few more minutes. There's a pathway in my brain now that says, it's all right, she's not going to swallow it. So you swish, swish, swish. It's a great little detox that you can do. And then release it out. And when you've released it out, have a glass of water and swish your mouth a couple of times and release that out, because that oil will be full of waste. It can even be pulling some chemicals out of your body. It's a great little detox that you can do just with the oil. And I've known people that have had infected gums, bleeding gums, to totally resolve that problem by oil pulling several times a day. Such a simple thing that you can do. And this is how your body effectively detoxifies you. Most people, especially if, say, they've got infected gums, they're worried and they think they need an antibiotics. But did you know that you have an immune system? It's called your white blood cells. And they do a very effective job at helping fight disease. And a great way to boost your immune system is this alternating hot and colds. So you might not be able to do a steam bath. See, we used to do a live blood analysis at Misty Mountain where I would take a drop of blood, put it under the microscope, put it up on a screen, you could see your red and white blood cells. And if someone had been through chemotherapy, often there's no white blood cells. And if they've had antibiotics, often hardly any white blood cells. See, if the human body was designed to heal itself, and I think we've established that, we need to work with those healing powers of the body, not slaughter the very immune system God put in there to fight disease. But by the end of the week, because they're doing the steam sauna, cold shower, or plunging in the creek, back into the hot sauna, by the end of the week we look at their blood and their white blood cells are normal. And that's how I know one of the best ways to boost your immune system, and now's a really good time to get used to it. You're going into winter, aren't you? So before it gets too cold, get your body used to turning the hot tap off. But I know every bathroom I go into, it's a bit strange, it's a bit different. Sometimes I have to run out with a towel around me saying, how do I do that? You got different, I was going to say strange, but I'm being kind to you, different things in America. We have a hot tap and a cold tap, got that? But you have a tap that you have to pull it right on, yeah? In my daughter's, then it's real hot, but in this shower where I am, the hot's first. Anyway, what happened today, I washed my hair and I put it over to get the cold. And it's so cold and I'm pushing it the wrong way and I'm finally I got it off. But it gives an incredible boost to your body, and it also boosts your bone marrow to make more red and white blood cells, just that quick cold. The good news, you can have a 10-minute hot shower and you only have to have a 20-second cold. So I was in Maryland, that's right up north, isn't it? Maryland, I think that was the week before last, and they had a frost, white frost. And we found a lake. And I dunked into that every morning. Now, as you can see, I'm still alive. Gives an incredible boost, an incredible boost. It's almost like you get an injection of power. But you have to warn your neighbours that screams will come out of your shower. But it's the best immune system booster. Choose your hard. Is that right? Have you heard the poem, Choose Your Hard? Marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard. Saving every cent is hard, being in debt is hard, choose your hard. Keeping fit is hard, being obese is hard, choose your hard. So you choose your hard. And at first it is hard because we're warm-blooded creatures. One lady said to me, Barbara, you say we should listen to our body. My body doesn't want me to do the cold. I said, yeah, but how do you feel after the cold? Now, I've been doing it for 20 years now. And so when there was ice on the ground in Maryland, and we went up to the dock, and I plunged into that cold water, I'm just so used to it. At first, it's a little bit... In fact, Jacqueline took some photos of me. I kept my beanie on. I didn't put my head on, it takes so long to dry the hair. And I sent it to my son and he said, I think it's cold by the look on your face. I think I'm going... But such a boost to your immune system. Choose your hard. Yes, at first it's hard. I'll be kind to you. Start with 10 seconds, build up to 20, see if you can get to 30 seconds by the winter. It's an incredible boost to your immune system because it goes right into your bone marrow, which stimulates the production of your red and white blood cells. It's been done for thousands of years. And you've probably, I know in Australia, way down the bottom, because in Australia, way down the bottom's the cold part. And in Melbourne, there's a group of really old guys called the icebergers. And they dive into the sea every morning, into the freezing cold sea. But it's just brief. It's just brief. And your body does get used to it. But one of the reasons why it's so effective is because we're warm-blooded creatures. And when you have that cold water plunge or cold water on you, your body reacts. Because we're warm-blooded creatures. And that reaction, basically the body's going, oh no, it's cold, move! It creates a little bit of a crisis, but your body adapts to that, and the adaptation to that strengthens it. So it's one of the easiest. You might agree with that. I'll change the word. It's one of the simplest. One of the simplest things that you can do, and yet probably one of the most powerful. This is a better word. And the cheapest thing that you can do to give your body a powerful boost, ready for the winter months. We're going to have a break now, and when we come back, we're going to look at fantastic fats. Jacqueline's just reminded me I've got a few questions to answer. Okay. Black lung from working in the coal mines. Make sure you're breathing through your nose. Very important you breathe through your nose because you will get a better quality air going into your lungs. As one lung specialist said, when you breathe in through your mouth, you're actually breathing dirty air, because the mouth doesn't purify it. So that's very important. You can also put castor oil compresses on the lungs. Castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil and can help to break it up. It is something that you can manage, and just every day I thank God that Jesus is going to come again and our lungs will be all healed, but until then we manage. Also, I'm going to be talking about respiratory. I think maybe Thursday, not exactly sure right at this moment. And I'll be talking in detail about how you can help your lungs. What causes liver cysts and how to treat them? Liver cysts, it's difficult for me to assess that, not knowing the history of a person. And in my both books, Sustain Me and Self-Heal by Design, I have chapters on the liver, and I list liver herbs that can help to boost the liver. And also there's a simple 5-day liver cleanse in the books. So that would help. And your liver is under your right rib, and castor oil compresses can be worn, and they will penetrate and break up the cysts. Most of my clothing, blends of cotton and polyester. My socks have wool, but a blend. Is this worse than not having any wool or cotton? No, it's better. In fact, a lot of the things that I wear are a blend. This is 100% wool. I try for 100% wool, but it's not at all itchy because it's from an Italian underwear shop. So the wool is very, very soft, and they get that wool from the neck of the sheep. But some of my socks are a blend of polyester and wool. I try and get about 60 wool because the polyester makes it a bit stronger, and also it's a bit stretchy. So I don't mind having a little bit of it, as long as most of it is the natural fibre. Is decaf coffee okay with baking soda added? What does that taste like? Never heard of putting. Nasty. Never heard of putting baking soda in there. Don't think it'll help though. One of the problems with decaf is they use chemicals to extract the caffeine out. So you've got another problem there. Apparently there is a French water extracted caffeine coffee. I don't know. The only way you'll know is drink it for a week and stop for a week and see if you've got any withdrawals. Then you'll know it's not 100% kosher. Does tea count as water? No. For some of the 8 glasses. The tea that's the closest is the herbal tea because it doesn't have caffeine or tannin in it. But if you look at a glass of water equal to a cup of, say, peppermint tea, it's not exactly equal, but it's probably about 3/4 equal with the water. What do you think of mushroom coffee? Depends if it's got caffeine in it. You see, caffeine's the problem. How do you feel about coffee enemas? That's the safest way to take coffee. Not everyone's that keen to take it that way. But what's the purpose of a coffee enema? Has a totally different effect on the body, and it has an effect to detoxify the liver. And I know Max Gerson, famous doctor who had a cancer conquering program, he advocated coffee enemas and found them very effective. But I'll tell you a funny story. There was a family that lived up in the hills, and they were into natural health, and every time anyone got sick they were given a coffee enema. That's the only way they used it. And they went down to the town and visited some relatives who were drinking the coffee, and the little boy came and said, "Dad, they're drinking it!" Because he'd only known it as an enema. Do you think an enema is an effective way to detox? If the bowels aren't working, it is definitely the quickest way to get them working. So maybe if the bowels are a bit sluggish, it can be helpful. Any cures for tinnitus, ringing in the ears? Usually ringing in the ears is a result of exposure to very loud noises when younger. So guys that have used jackhammers, been exposed to bombs or loud guns when they were younger, every rock star has it. That really loud pumping noise. What it does is it damages the fine mechanisms in the ear. But it can be managed. the damage has been done, and I find when those 5 allergens are stopped, we looked at them yesterday, they're the most common causes of excess mucus in the eustachian tubes, which is dairy, wheat, oats, peanuts, refined sugar. I find when those stopped, then the mucus is not as, well, it reduces the mucus in the eustachian tubes, which reduces the pressure, which reduces the tinnitus. We had a guy, it's an interesting story. We had a guy come out Misty Mountain about 15 years ago, and he came to do fences for us. He's a bit of a rough bloke, you know, he used to work in the mines, jackhammers, and he came to us and he said, look, I'm happy to do your fences, but he said, don't talk to me about God, I'm not interested, but I'll do your fences. And we said, sure. But our guests have a steam sauna every day, and our guy was away for a week, so we got Jeff to do the steam sauna, which is lighting the fire, and you have to sit there, you know, because the men go through, then the ladies go through, so it's a couple of hours. And there was a book there, it was The Desire of Ages, which is a book on the life of Jesus. Now, this book had been rained on, the cows had chewed on it, it was a bit of a... but he had nothing to do, so he picked up the book, and he read the whole book in a week. And he came into the office and he said to Michael, oh, sorry, but I read the books, changed my life, I want to become a Christian. But what was interesting, he really changed his life. He stopped drinking, stopped smoking, stopped coffee, stopped meat, went on a plant-based diet. He used to have terrible tinnitus. And when he changed his diet, the tinnitus reduced right down. He said it's half gone. And he said, it's like at Misty Mountain, in the summertime there are cicadas. Do you have cicadas? Yes. You know, and they can be nearly deafening. And people come to us and say, how can you bear the noise? I can't even hear it. But when they mention it, oh, then I hear it. It's like when someone lives near a train line, they can't hear the trains. And that can happen. You train yourself actually out of hearing it. You can target it, or you can think of something else. So that's how Jeff conquered his tinnitus. So he worked for us for quite a while, and he used to drive the guests, because we're 2 hours from the town. He used to drive the guests out. And he drove a guest out once who had cancer. And at the end of the week, all her pain had gone, and the result was remarkable. And she was just telling him her story. And when he came back, he came into my kitchen, sat down. He said, I just heard this story. He said, I want to work for you people for the rest of my life. He'd never heard anything like it. Just incredible. So that's the great story of Jeff. I have been struggling with vertigo. I have no ear infection. I think it's a very similar thing to tinnitus. You know, often it's damage and keeping the allergens away so that the eustachian tubes are clear can make a big difference. Vertigo is a little bit of balance too. Our balance is set by the bottom of our feet and the inner ear. And rebounding, that little mini trampoline. Now, a lot of people don't go on it if they don't have good balance, but it's actually the best way to reset your balance. And you can get a rebounder with a bar, so you can start with the health bounce. This is the health bounce. Just, your feet don't even have to leave the mat, and as you get better at it, you can. We've done a parasite cleanse, heavy metal cleanse, okay, in trying to help. This is little tiny writing. What are the best ways to remove parasites from, and they're outside the digestion system and the muscles? It's an opinion, isn't it? How can they tell? That's what I often wonder. That's why we're putting on our trust in princes. But there are 2 very strong herbs that parasites and worms hate. It is wormwood and black walnut. And there's also diatomaceous earth that can be taken. Infant health, respiratory infection, what can be done? to help heal up. Do you know if we do nothing, they heal? Have you noticed? In fact, children all over the world have had fevers. Children all over the world get colds, chest, and they heal. And remember I told you the story of Emma who wanted to grow up in a minute? And we want them to be better in the minute, but they do heal. But if a child is not healing, it could mean they have an allergy. And most common allergen causing that excess mucus is dairy. Well, I'll do this last one so we can have a break. Can you please share more on how to treat infant sicknesses? My infant grandson, we exposed to mould. He had bacterial infection, respiratory. There is no need for antibiotics. Because remember what I said, we've got an immune system and it can effectively, my children all got fevers, my children all got colds, my children all had bronchitis at time to time, but I never gave them antibiotics. What did our grandparents do? Do you remember? Give us a lemon and honey drink. Yeah, put the feet in hot water with a bit of mustard. We're doing a natural remedies class, I think on Thursday, where I'll be showing some simple things that you can do, no matter what the age, to alleviate. But truly, if you do nothing, they heal. But there are simple things that you can do. In my book, Sustain Me, I have a whole chapter on poultices, and it covers a whole lot of things that you can do. Doctor gave antibiotics, there is no need. A lady told me recently she had an antibiotic for a cold and her gut has never been the same since. And the first thing I said is, you know, you don't need an antibiotic for a cold. You don't. I'm not against antibiotics, but it should be kept as a lifesaver, not for all the little bits and pieces that happen to the body. We'll have a break now. It's 22. We'll come back at 7 o'clock where we'll look at fantastic fats. Thank you.